a bit excited. Oh my god, it hasn't snowed like this in years. This is going to be a good day.
Today's question, is the Sony A6400 still relevant in 2021?
Snow
Let's
edition.
find out. Now let's talk about some pros and cons of this camera. Starting with probably the most important feature about this camera, the video quality. This camera shoots in 1080p at 120 frames per second and 4K at 30 frames per second. That is in NTSC. In PAL it shoots 100 frames per second and 25 frames per second at 4K. If you don't know what NTSC and PAL means, it's basically the frequency of light, the hertz. In America they use 60 hertz, which is NTSC, and in Europe they use 50 hertz, which is the PAL.
Okay, another great thing about this camera is the autofocus. Whenever we shoot something that moves in front of the camera, the autofocus picks it up really fast and it's just really easy to work with, especially if you're a beginner filmmaker. The autofocus is just really good.
Next up, the sensor size. The camera uses a APS-C sized sensor, which it works fine for us. It's not full frame. Do keep in mind it has a 1.5 crop factor, so any lenses will be a little more
zoomed in.
For example, a 16mm lens will zoom in and it will become a 24mm lens. The APS-C sensor is less sharp than a full frame sensor would be, but in a camera of this price range, it's really good.
Another pro about this camera is that the photo quality is really good. Whenever you're shooting a video and you need a thumbnail, you can quickly shoot a thumbnail. And whenever you want to shoot some photos for Instagram, it's a really good camera to get that shot. If you are looking for a professional photography camera, you can take a look at the other cameras of Sony, especially those in the A7 series. Those cameras are more photography based, which the Sony A6400 is videography based and photography based, which has a great combination, but it's a little less in photography.
This camera is not very big, which makes it very easy to travel with. Although we can't travel right now because we are in lockdown.
It's also really good for vlogging. It's just easy to hold. It's not that heavy. Yep. Whenever you have a big camera, it gets really heavy for your biceps and your shoulders, and this is just really good for vlogging. We don't really vlog, but if you do vlog, it's really handy. Don't look at yourself all the time because we notice. Okay, we got to the last pro. Another great thing about this camera are the focus settings. There are lots of options. You have spot focus, center focus, zone focus, manual focus, just all kinds of focuses. We actually learned about that from Jason Fung. He's a very good YouTuber who explains everything about the Sony cameras. So if you want to check it out, we will put a link in the description where he explains the focus settings. I thought I was at the last pro, but I have one more, which is for photography, which is called
High plus mode.
Yeah, I cannot pronounce that. Basically, you can shoot 11 photos a second, so it goes.
We don't shoot photos that often, but for a thumbnail or an Instagram post, it is a perfect camera to get just that shot that you need. That looks better on your feed or looks better on your timeline. Sadly, no camera is perfect and neither is this one. Let's move on to the cons of the camera. The first con of this camera is that the camera doesn't have an in-body stabilization system. As videographers, we do want that cinematic look, so we want the camera to be smooth. We fixed this by buying a gimbal, the holy trinity of cinematic shots. No, that's not really true. The gimbal does help with making smooth cinematic shots. Without it, the camera can look a bit shaky at times, especially if you're just walking. If you do decide to use this camera handheld, be sure to walk as stable as possible and fix any jitters or micro jitters with the warp stabilizer tool.
Secondly, the battery life is not optimal. Whenever you do shoot in 4K, the battery life will not last that long, only like 1 hour and 20 minutes. Yep. And whenever you shoot in like cold conditions, the battery can die really fast. They died I think 3 times faster.
Yeah.
Something like 3 times faster than normal.
And earlier we mentioned that the camera is good for vlogging because it has a flip out screen. What we didn't mention is that the flip out screen only flips up. For some people that might be a problem because if you are using a microphone, the microphone completely blocks the view of the screen, preventing you from actually seeing what is being filmed. Luckily there is an easy solution for this problem. There is a small adapter by, I think it's called Small Rig, which moves the location of the microphone to the side so that you can see your flip out screen again. Another minor complaint about this camera is the camera strap attachment. The built-in metal piece isn't big enough to fit a cord through, so you need an extra triangle piece. But whenever you walk or run or whatever, shoot anything with the camera, it rattles and you can hear that sound through the internal microphone. I would have liked to see something a little more like this Canon camera. It's not in the way, it's big enough to fit a cord through like a camera strap, and most importantly, it doesn't stick out.
Another problem that we've had is that the camera switches automatically to Viewfinder mode. What I mean by that is that there's a small screen inside the Viewfinder that takes over the actual screen.
There is a setting to manually set the view mode to screen, but sometimes it switches to Viewfinder mode, and I'm not really sure why. I haven't heard this problem anywhere online or anyone who has the same camera, so maybe this is just a problem for our specific camera, for our specific model. But it's still a bit weird.
If you do know how to solve the problem, let us know in the comments because we have no clue.
Would be nice to know. Probably the biggest con, at least in my opinion, is that the LCD screen is a touchscreen, but only for spot focus. So it's not touchscreen for the menu setting, it's not touchscreen for video playback, only for spot focus. And it's really easy to press that accidentally. What spot focus means is you can press somewhere on the screen and then the camera will lock focus on that specific spot. If you're using a different focus mode, like center focus, it will completely ditch that.
It will lose focus.
It will completely lose focus and only focus on the point you set it to.
Yeah, and the annoying thing is that sometimes you just accidentally touch the screen and then it just disappears the focus.
Yeah, it can be very annoying to find out that the last couple of shots you took weren't good because they weren't in focus because you accidentally touched the screen and it went to spot focus. For as far as I know, this setting cannot be turned off, and I really wish it could, because it's created so many problems and it will solve.
Cannot be turned off? Have you tried?
I've tried every setting.
Oh. If we look at all the pros and cons, the pros are definitely way more important than the cons. The cons are very minor in our opinion.
Once you learn the in and outs of this camera, it is a very good camera to start your filmmaking career with. So to answer the question, is this camera still relevant in 2021?
For filmmakers? Yes.